What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. I hope you did not watch any of these trash bag games this week because guess what? It was same shit, different day. On Monday, they left 1 billion people on base. On Tuesday, they actually got a lot of hits and won a game. They do that once every series. And then on Wednesday, Luis Severino still cannot pitch. Guess what? We've seen this before, and they lost again. They lost to a team, the White Sox, who sold at the deadline, who suck. You can't even take 2 out of 3 from a terrible team. This team is awful. That's the recap. Let's talk about anything else. Scott, hi. How you doing?
You said you got this as we were coming into the taping. I had a feeling something like that was coming with the positivity spin on.
It's not positivity.
On what this team is. No, in the voice, it was the inflection. It was the inflection of positivity. So
we could spend. Listen,
while everybody felt what you said, maybe they didn't hear it because they just heard here we go.
Well, it's sarcastic.
I feel like that's what Boone does. I feel like that's what Boone does. Actually, he just has a tone, even though he can't say something negative, so he just says something around it, but in a really positive tone.
Maybe we could spend the next 50 minutes shitting all over this team for the runners left on base, for the wasted opportunities, for the pitching not coming through, Luis Severino being, quote, the worst pitcher in baseball, Carlos Rodon back on the IL, all of this stuff. But you could also go listen to any of our past dozen episodes and basically hear the same thing, because it's been this for 2 months with this team. Nothing has changed, and I don't expect anything to change. So I'm just tired of talking about the same problems with this team and this organization, because I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. And I put the game on, and it's like I'm watching a replay. I'm watching the worst Yankees rewind of all time, where it's not a good game that you get.
It's like an episode of Black Mirror. I don't know if you've watched Black Mirror yet.
I've seen some of them.
Yeah, Black Mirror, I'm not necessarily talking about the pig episode, okay? That one, put that one aside. If anybody
was that like
knows
the pilot? That was the pilot, right?
No, this was a politician and a pig, and
I think that was the pilot episode.
Oh, the pilot episode. Yeah. I thought you meant the pilot was doing the thing with the pig. No. Yes, it was. It was first or second one. And my little sister's like, "Oh yeah, Black Mirror, Black Mirror." Apparently she watched it out of order. This was a couple years ago when it started. She's like, "Watch it." And I turned it on. I'm like, "What is wrong with you? Why would you tell me to watch that?" Anyway, I watched some of the other ones, and they're actually pretty good. It's like
I've seen a couple.
They're interesting.
It's modern day.
That's exactly what this is. We're in a bizarro world. We're in a Black Mirror world. We're in the Twilight Zone, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's what this is, because it is the same thing over and over. And even on the day, because I didn't even notice this, I was looking for anything positive. And when I was looking at line scores, I'm like, oh man, 13 hits. Felt like a lot of hits. Put that in the chat. Boom. Ilya comes back, 17 strikeouts in the same game. I didn't even realize it because they had so many damn hits. But even in the games that they have 13 hits, which is you gotta throw some positivity there and make sure that we're looking at the fact that these guys are actually getting on base. No. They were stretching it out. They were stretching out the entire game essentially just to strike out 17 times. So you're looking at the games that you do things well. And on the other side of it, there's like the devil on your shoulder. It's still there. It's still there. No matter what mask you have on, no matter what rosy colored glasses you're wearing on that given day, they're still there. And then yesterday, when they have an opportunity to pick Severino up after that home run that he, and God, that was a bad pitch. He's just leaving pitches over the middle of the plate. Bottom line,
completely lost.
Leaving things over the middle of the plate. Cone hit it pretty well last night when he was talking about the problems. You could look at all the different issues that we've talked about: pitch tipping, potential mechanics, all that. He's just leaving the ball over the middle of the plate. So whatever is getting to that point, that's the problem. The problem is the ball is over the middle of the plate and the guys are smashing it. So yeah, the fact that the Yankees can't tweak him to a point where he's serviceable is wild. But yeah, you're finding all these warts that still continue to come up and kill this team. And you can't lose 2 out of 3 to this Chicago team. You can't. When it's funny because you look at the Chicago team and they're a similar beast in the sense that they have a lot of talent, but for whatever reason they They're not putting anything together. Luis Robert is like a phenomenal player. They have talent, but they don't put it together for long periods of time unless they're playing the Yankees, who, they're competing for the one team. What was that graphic we saw with all the X's across where they didn't improve on anything?
Yeah, it was a graphic
baseball,
comparing all the teams in baseball on just like different stats, both on the offensive and pitching side last year to this year. And the Yankees are one of the only teams in Major League Baseball to regress in every single category. A lot of teams,
there were four teams that I think it was the Yankees, the Mets. So New York has that on lock.
The
and
Guardians,
then it was the White Sox, and the Brewers.
I thought it was the Guardians too. Yeah.
Okay, so 5.
Regressed on every single category. Some teams go up and some down and others. Some team up across the board. Like Baltimore is obviously going to be up across the board. But yeah, Yankees down in every category. And I don't know how you could look at that graphic, and that you don't need that graphic to understand this team has regressed. But how can Hal Steinbrenner stand for that is my question. It's like, it's one thing to turn a blind eye to fluky things, because I do think this organization uses the fluke excuse a lot, but regressing in every single category is not a fluke. That's consistent poor performance across the board. That's not one or two bad things happening. That is just being bad across the board. And so it's like, how do you ignore that as an evaluator, as a manager, as an owner? How do you, when you're doing your, whatever you want to equate this to, any company that anybody listening to works, you do a performance review at the end of the year and someone gets worse across the board, you don't just turn a blind eye to that. You have to address it.
Yeah, but here's the problem. It's like you have to address it in a way that makes sense, that has some common sense attached to it. And in this case, it's not just 1 year, it's multiple. So you have to make moves. It's not something that you can just fix, because there are times where you can like make some changes, do some training, add a piece that maybe was missing. You could do a number of things to make that person perform better. But this is an ongoing thing. It's not like this is new either. This is beating the same drum over and over and over again. So I don't know what more can be done unless you just get rid of the person. That's the change.
A baseball team, you have to make more of those drastic changes, and you have to bring new personnel, both on the coaching and player side. The categories, I just pulled up the graphic: win-loss, batting average, OBP, slugging, ERA, FIP, and WHIP. Yankees, X's across the board. The other teams to do that: White Sox, as we mentioned, Cleveland, Mets, and I think that's it.
The Brewers,
said the Brewers? Or the Brewers?
No, maybe
it's the Brewers. It's the Brewers as well. Yeah. But it's only even terrible teams, right? Like, there's terrible teams on here that have improved in at least one category.
Yeah, well, I mean, so some of them, if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you have to improve on certain things. But
Oakland somehow has improved in some categories. Like, Oakland's a terrible team. The Royals have improved in some categories. The Tigers have improved in some, like, these are the Nationals. These are bad teams that have at least gotten better in one area. That doesn't make them a good team, but they've at least gotten better. The Yankees are getting
there's no progress
worse.
here. There's no progress here. None.
And to your point about like the 13 hits on Tuesday, the 7 runs, but the 17 strikeouts.
17 strikeouts.
That's just par for the course. Like,
that's not par for the course. 13 hits doesn't happen.
No, but what I'm saying, like the 17 strikeouts, like, yeah, that's what this team does. They can sit there and say, Boone can sit there and say, like, I listened to the post game on Wednesday. He's like, the opportunities are there for us. We have to break through. It's on us to break through. Sean Casey's sitting there saying, we need to cut down on the strikeouts.
I mean, none of this. Sean Casey's in an impossible position.
No. I'm not blaming Sean Casey for the strikeouts, but like, newsflash, the Yankees have struck out a lot for 5 years in a row.
But they also have players that strike out a lot.
I know that. So when planning a team in the offseason or whatever, and you identify strikeouts as a problem, that was identified in 2019 or 2018, really, dating back to 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Strikeouts was a problem for this team, for this lineup, all of those years.
Mm-hmm.
What has been done to address that on the team building side?
Anthony Rizzo was so
Yep.
we were happy with the moves when Rizzo, Benintendi, like those are guys that don't strike out a ton. Gallo, we knew struck out a ton.
Benintendi was
we knew.
acquired and then not
Yep.
retained.
Not
They
retained.
decided we're going to run with Oswaldo Cabrera and Aaron
Yeah.
Hicks in left field, and that was.
I mean, I'm not going to
obviously
kill
a
him for
mistake.
that. Benintendi hasn't been. I mean, IKF has been more productive than Benintendi. So
No, I'm not killing them for.
yeah, I know, but they didn't. They decided that they didn't need to replace Benintendi in left field with another guy that had a similar makeup. Essentially, is what we're looking at,
or a major league left fielder, because
or a major league left fielder.
went with not major league caliber left fielders for the
but
season.
also they leave a void in the lineup in the sense that you're not now mixing up what the makeup of the players are within your starting lineup, which is a problem. So you're essentially back to the same drill, and you have a DJ LeMahieu who also is one of those guys that doesn't strike out a lot.
And he struck out more this year than ever
right,
before.
but you don't. That's my point. Is you don't know.
No,
they didn't
that
know
was
what
not
he was going to
planned.
be. Essentially, they didn't
You
know what he
didn't-
was going to be.
No, but he was injured all off season, so you
Yeah,
should
yeah.
have planned. You should have had contingency plans
Oh,
for him
yes,
not performing.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they should have relied on him. They should have had that actually should have made more of an emphasis to acquire someone for left field or another position that fit the bill.
So my point is, going into this season, when we're looking at the starting players to start the season, the non-strikeout guys were Rizzo and LeMahieu on paper.
Everyone put Judge in that category. Judge is not a strikeout guy anymore. I don't put him in that category.
No, yeah, I mean, Judge is one of the best offensive players in baseball. So fine, put him in that category. But everyone else, other than those three players,
what's Glaber's strikeout percentage?
It's got to be. I mean, it's probably
20%.
Not great. I mean, I'm not going to say he's a strikeout guy, but he's not a strikeout guy, if that makes sense.
He's not a problem in the strikeout category.
He's not a solution to the strikeout problem.
No, but he's a known quantity. Again, like you have to bring in a solution. We know what we have, but they didn't bring in another piece that
the point
now that there's a solution, there's got to be a puzzle piece. This is a puzzle.
I'm just sick of every single season us talking about the strikeout problem and them saying, yeah, we need to cut down on the strikeouts, and really nothing is done to actually cut down on the strikeouts.
So interesting enough, when you hear quotes from Sean Casey that they were talking about last night, is he's a believer. So I'm happy with his philosophy. His philosophy is right. His philosophy is good. You can hit the ball you can get on base. You can have a high contact percentage. You can have a high batting average and still hit home runs. And I totally agree. That's, when you start seeing Aaron Judge hitting line drives all over the field, like they're going out of the park also. And a lot of guys have that philosophy where you hit the ball hard. A lot of times it's just going to go out, and just focus on hitting the ball hard, making contact, and going pole to pole. It will go out for a lot of folks. That would make this team better. You're not going to be able to fix that in the middle of a season. Not going to be able to change players in the middle of a year. That's not going to happen. Gradually they'll potentially improve. So maybe Sean Casey stays here for another year, whether Aaron Boone is here or not.
I would say if Boone gets fired, Sean Casey, the makeup new of manager will want new coaching.
Yeah, it totally feels like hey, this is you want a job for 6 months, 4 months.
God, what a miserable 4 months.
Yeah. Well, so you can't change the makeup of it. And anyway, when we get back to all these things, you go back to the grade of the team, and you absolutely look at the players, but you have to look at everything else. You have to look at what's behind it.
Exactly. Because again, just using the strikeout example, if you're Hal and you're saying strikeouts have been a problem for our lineup for going on 5 seasons, Brian, you have not fixed that any of these 5 seasons, and it continues to be a problem. So it's your job to put the players on the team, and you have not done that. So
14% strikeout.
So
I'm going to need you to give him some credit right now. 9th best percentile in baseball.
Okay, fine. But the team is still, didn't he strike out like 4 times last night or in one of those games?
It doesn't matter.
My point is I don't think of Gleyber Torres as
14% is really good.
an answer to the
today's
strikeout
baseball.
problem, though. This lineup is striking
14%.
out too much.
Hold on a second. That's not true. If you take Gleyber Torres out of the picture because you hate him for some reason.
He's mediocre.
He's a very good baseball player, actually. He's becoming better. The 14%, if you just took 14% and plopped that into left field, you would be happy.
Is the 14% strikeout player in left field good?
It doesn't matter.
Defense?
Just take that. Get rid of your bias and just take the 14%.
Fine, whatever.
Strikeout rate, and you put that on left field, and we would be applauding a move like that.
I'm not. The point where the conversation we're having is not whether Gleyber Torres strikes out a lot or not. The point is this lineup strikes out too much, and nothing has been changed about this lineup significantly to fix that problem. That's my point.
Yeah, they don't score runs because they don't get on base.
No, they do get on base.
They do get on base. Hold on, because Dylan Cease walked them 7 times.
Yeah,
7 times, and they did. And he
getting
was still
on
throwing
base,
a no-hitter. He was throwing a no-hitter for when he had 7 walks, I think.
Getting on base is not the problem. Like if we look at Monday night's game, bases loaded, no outs in the second.
It's situational hitting.
First and
situational
third,
hitting has killed them in the playoffs. It's killed this team for the last how long do you say we've been doing this podcast? 9 years.
Seasons. Yeah.
So
situational hitting.
for the last 7 years, it's been killing this team.
The bases loaded in the second on Monday, no runs. First and third in the third, no runs. Bases loaded in the sixth, no runs. You can't leave all of those men on base. And then Wednesday again, bases, was that the 8th inning that they got bases loaded when it was still a game at that point? Oswaldo strikes out and then double play ball from Higgy. Like, yeah, Higgy hit the ball hard, but he hit it right at the second baseman. You're facing a sinker ball pitcher and you hit the ball hard on the ground. Guess what? That's what a sinker ball pitcher does. Yeah. You hit the ball on the ground, you're most likely not going to score runs. And so that it is what it is with this team. You can't leave bases loaded time after time after time, especially when you need to win every game and you're already in a hole because Severino is completely lost. They tried the opener situation on Wednesday. That didn't work. Hamilton looked great in the first. They go to Severino in the second, and it's immediately like, oh, nothing's changed. I don't know why they thought just having him being an opener coming out of the bullpen was magically going to fix him. Maybe they thought it was a mental thing with him, right? And different preparation, different situation would fix him. But like you said, to Cohn's point, whether he's tipping, whether it's a mental thing, whatever, these pitches that are getting hit are belt high in the middle of the plate. That is the number one problem with Luis Severino right now. It's not whether or not he's starting the game, finishing the game, coming in the second inning, eating chicken before the game. None of that matters. These pitches are belt high in the middle of the plate. They're going to get hit by major league hitters. Bottom line.
So this is where I need need everybody in the world to look at what their solution was or what their Band-Aid was to this problem. Having Ian Hamilton throw 1 inning,
right,
and then Severino
cross your fingers that it fixes.
That's
Severino.
what they do. Yeah, where Cohn's sitting here at the end of the day, he's like, it does look like he's flying open early, which means the ball is seen by the batter earlier and able to be picked up. That's a massive mechanical flaw that should be fixed. Like, okay, David Cohn from the booth is seeing that this man is flying open early. And then I'm not just saying Severino, when any pitcher is open early, you can see the ball more clearly. Whereas if you're closed, you can't see it because it's behind your head or shoulder or something. But if you're open, I got the ball right here, closed, no ball, open, ball. And they can't change that. They can't give him something to tweak that as well, to allow him to, look, I'm making it sound simple, but at the end of the day, when someone in the booth is also identifying something, and if they are identifying that and Severino just can't fix it for some reason either, then we got a bigger problem.
Then don't put him in the second inning. Yeah, that's
starting him in the second inning means nothing.
Exactly. It means nothing. Kay was talking about like last night. Yeah, we understand Luis Severino is important to this team's success, but right now you need to win every single game.
There's no margin for error.
There's no margin for error. And when he takes the ball, you lose the game, bottom line, because he's been that bad. And I was getting on Cohn a little bit. He was saying Luis Severino has been a great Yankee, but he's going through some tough times. And it's like, fine. Maybe he was saying he's not a Yankee great. He's been a great Yankee. I understand
Yes,
that.
that's the distinguishing
But
factor. Cohn was not saying he's a Yankee great.
Assuming this is Luis Severino's last go with the Yankees, how is he going to be remembered? Because I'm going to remember him for really two things. Number one, being injured every single season of that 5-year contract that he signed. And number two, not being able to start game 3 or game 2, whatever it was against Boston in 2018 on time, not knowing what time of game the playoff game started. I think it was game 3, right? It was a weird start time and he wasn't prepared for it. Then he was tipping his pitches and he got crushed. And really, most of the time he took the ball in the playoffs, whether it was in 2017 wild card game, the 2018 game against the Red Sox, against Minnesota in 2019, he wasn't good.
ALDS game 2-19, the two events that we did in the postseason when he pitched.
So Luis Severino will be remembered for being injured a lot and not being good when the games mattered, unfortunately.
Yeah, I put him in the category of just like completely missed the potential. And it's one of those, I put him in the same category as Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez is, when I see these guys that have all this potential in the world and start really well, you're like, yes, we got one. And then everything happens.
And then what's the common thread there? It's the Yankees handling of these players. You had an all-star caliber catcher who was otherworldly in his first 2 seasons of Major League Baseball. And you had a potential Cy Young caliber ace who was otherworldly to start his career. And they both were completely ruined.
They regressed completely. Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. I mean, you do see this a lot. I'm not going to say that this is an anomaly because you look back in history and look at player of the year winners throughout the history of baseball.
Rookie of the year.
What did I say? Rookie of the year. Sorry. You won't recognize half the names when you start getting back a little bit further because the players, fizzle out. So it does happen a lot. But this is in front of our face. This is with the kids that they've been grooming. They've been grooming Gary Sanchez since he was 16 years old. So this is a guy that and took forever. And granted, there were makeup issues with him from the beginning. There were, but yeah, Severino, I think, unfortunately, was derailed completely by injury in his career. At the end of the day, what history is going to remember, what I'm going to remember, are 2 players that should have been much better, that should have been much bigger contributors to this team, and unfortunately, were just very frustrating.
And ultimately,
I love Severino, man. Severino was one of my favorite guys.
Sure,
I root for him. Even this year, you talk about the injuries a lot, and him, and that's valid. It's totally accurate because he doesn't stay on the field. I'm the one that's looking. I'm like with hope because I want Severino to do well. Like I emotionally get behind certain guys that are coming up, and Severino was definitely one of those guys. Sanchez, I never really got emotionally behind just because he was frustrating forever. But Severino was one of those guys who really gave us those glimpses of hope, the fire, you saw everything you wanted to see from this man. And yeah, I think unfortunately injuries really just took a toll on him, and we're seeing the product of multiple years of injuries, not pitching, not being able to get better as your career goes on because he gets knocked down to square one, and you can't progress in that way.
It's injuries, but it's also the Yankees handling of those injuries, like not doing the MRI on his shoulder in whatever year that was.
There's a lot of contributing factors. Yes.
That. But if as the further we get away from 2017 and we're looking back at why this Yankees team has not been able to break through and win a championship, there's a million factors, but as big a reason as any is those young players we thought were going to be the core of this team, Sanchez and Severino, probably the 2 of the most prominent, did not pan out. And we thought, okay, here we are. Sanchez, Severino, obviously Judge, and then Gleyber Torres to follow, Clint Frazier to follow, maybe Justice Sheffield, like all of these players they acquired.
Justice Sheffield, come on.
I was just saying, all these players they acquired at the 16 deadline, plus the young prospects coming up through the system, is the reason the Yankees system back in 16 and 17 was ranked so highly. And what we thought was going to happen is we're going to supplement with free agents, acquisitions, but it's going to be that core. Like, why did the Yankees have a dynasty in the 90s? Yeah, they signed some great veterans and got some good veteran acquisitions, but it was the core four plus Bernie Williams is the reason why they went on a historic run. And we thought that was going to happen again to some degree with another core, and that core just turned into Aaron Judge, and that's it. And you can't win championships with one great player.
Yeah, no, I think at that point too, you're looking around, you see all this young talent, you see the young guys doing well, especially coming out of 16 with Gary Sanchez and then into 17 with them progressing well. You're like, okay, wow, this team is better. The young guys are playing, they are. And in 17, to the Yankees credit, all the things you just said, they did that. They did that. They brought in the Matt Hollidays of the world. They brought in the veteran players to go around this team, and they were good. They were a good team. And unfortunately, it fizzled out at the end, but they were a good team and they were playing above their means. And ever since then, all we've seen is a team with talent that's played below their means.
Yep.
Because
the talent didn't fit, the puzzle pieces didn't fit together. It's like, just use the Giancarlo Stanton as an example. Okay. We've been talking about this a lot. They decided we're going to go and get Giancarlo Stanton because this is falling into our lap. And that means we're not going to be in on Bryce Harper. And for whatever reason, they decided we're not going to be in on Manny Machado. But the problem is Giancarlo Stanton was not what that team needed at that time. They didn't need another right-handed power bat that strikes out a lot. You already had Sanchez and Judge. You didn't need another one of those. You needed a left-handed power bat or a left-handed contact bat. Even though Giancarlo Stanton was coming off an MVP, that's not what the 2018 Yankees needed. So objectively, when you're looking at it, that was the wrong decision for Brian Cashman to make, even if it was a good deal. Being a good deal doesn't mean it's the right deal. Yeah, it was a good deal. It was still a good deal. For money plus Starlin Castro, of course. But it wasn't the right deal for the Yankees at the time.
Yeah, again, Monday morning quarterback, looking at that, yes, you're right.
Of course, Monday morning quarterback. That's what we do.
That is what we do. You're right. The pieces, even at the time, though, the bigger need was third base, and Manny Machado was the guy that would have fit this team a lot better. That said, they were overperforming and over-indexing with the young talent at that point. And I think as a fan base, we certainly got all hung up in that, and we're like, oh man, we have it, us included. We have the new core four. We have the new young guys that are going to take us to the promised land. And while the pieces were not the right pieces, also those guys also, beyond, except for Aaron Judge, regressed and got injured. And that now you're looking at just the other guys that you're bringing in and substitutions, and you're like, or guys that aren't as good as you thought they were going to be. And you're like, wait a minute, it's not as good as I thought. And you bring in Aaron Boone, who's done nothing, literally. I mean, all this traces back to Aaron Boone starting this team also, whether that's coincidence or not, it does. It goes back to his first day as a Yankee manager. And the day that they, maybe this is all just the curse of firing Joe Girardi after over a team that is just performing way better. He got them to play way better than they should have been, because he did. Whether he's the right guy for this team, he was the right guy for that team in 17. He was the right guy.
He was too hard on the players. They didn't have fun while they were
So
playing.
he was the right guy because he got them to play. And how do we know that? By looking back, because they performed better than any other team has with the same roster, with similar roster. He got the most out of that team. He absolutely did. Coming from 16, what they did in 17, looking back now, you want to talk about a great managerial job? Joe Girardi, 2017, put it up there because it's pretty high.
Something just popped into my head from a very early press conference of Aaron Boone about Gary Sanchez, which I want to get into. But before that, I have to tell you guys about Factor. You guys must try Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Factor delivers amazing meals that are flavor packed for any dietary need. Calorie conscious, keto friendly, veggie and vegan meals. There's something for everybody. The process is super easy. You go on their website and you pick your meals from a weekly selection of over 30 delicious options. Factor prepares and cooks those meals to perfection with their gourmet chefs. The food is delivered right to you in a nice freezer cooled box. You pop it in your refrigerator, and then when you're ready to eat it, you put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. And in just 2 minutes, you're eating delicious food. My favorite one that they sent us was the black pepper pork chop. I was a little skeptical, not going to lie. You're microwaving a pork chop, and I'm like, how good is this thing going to be? Is this going to taste like shoe leather? No, it was one of the most delicious, tender pork chops I've ever had in my entire life, and that is not an exaggeration. There's also a ton of snack options and add-ons, including cold pressed juices and shakes if you're really trying to watch what you eat. This is seriously the easiest and best option for food if you're struggling to eat delicious and healthy meals. Sometimes it's easy to fall into bad routines, especially if you've got kids or whatever, busy work schedule. Factor can help solve that. Head to factormeals.com/Bronx50 and use code Bronx50 to get 50% off. That is 50%, half off. That's a great deal. factormeals.com/Bronx50. Factormeals.com/Bronx50. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring us. Go check them out. Supporting our show by supporting Factor. One of the first press conferences Boone did, I don't know if it was absolute first, he was asked about Gary Sanchez catching, and because at the time Austin Romine was the Yankees backup, right, in 2018, and if there would be personal catcher scenarios. I don't remember for what pitcher. It was probably Sonny Gray, if I had to guess. And Boone was talking about no. He said no, and then someone brought up his dad. So Boone's dad was a catcher, and he was actually a personal. I think he either was a personal catcher for someone, or someone didn't like throwing to Boone's dad. And that topic was brought up. And Boone's answer was, well, my dad didn't hit like Gary hits. The point being, we're overlooking deficiencies in his game. We're going to look past those things because he can hit. Anointing Gary Sanchez as you're amazing from the get-go. You don't need to work. You just go out there and hit, and we're going to let you go. We're going to deal with it. Even though a whole reason that Boone was brought in, like one of the number one reasons was apparently Gary Sanchez did not like how hard Joe Girardi, a former catcher, probably extra hard on Gary because he's a former catcher, was on him. Gary Sanchez had the best season of his career playing for Joe Girardi in 2017. He was an all-star, had over a 900 OPS. Did he have some deficiencies behind the plate? Yeah. But the point is, all of those deficiencies, catching, defensively, eventually bled into offensively, and he just dissolved as a player under Aaron Boone.
Look, I remember us killing this at the time because of the fact that they're making a decision basically to coddle a player. I remember hating it from the very beginning because the Boone, the whole thing about Boone, whole narrative about Boone was the communicator, great communicator. And then Gary Sanchez was always brought up as an example of that communicator. And we went down to the Dominican Republic to visit him in the offseason and all these things. If they didn't recognize at that moment that Gary Sanchez needed more structure in his life to actually get the best out of him, they were looking at a completely different player. The kid, Gary Sanchez, had issues all the way through. They pulled him out of a futures game. They said, you cannot play in the futures game because of the way that he was conducting himself in the clubhouse or dugout in one of the minor league games. There was like a lack of effort. There was something there that wasn't good. Immaturity basically is what it was. He was an immature player. It took him longer and that happens. That happens with a lot of baseball players. I get it. We're dealing with teenagers. And they decided that this is the whole cool dad, like tough dad role that we had mocked up a little bit. They brought in the cool dad when Gary Sanchez needed that accountable dad, that guy who could get the most out of you by building in structure, whether you like it or not. Nobody likes that if they need it. If they need it, you don't like it because you don't want this. Your natural instinct is to go against that, but you need it to perform well. You need it to succeed. You need that framework around you so that your talents can actually be used. Because once that framework goes away, now you're all over the damn place and your talent can't be honed into one usable thing. And you're all over the damn place. And that's what happened there. And if it happened there, it probably happened in multiple other people because they were, the coddling happened, the structure went away, and the cool dad took over. And now everybody's, in jail or getting arrested for giving their own kids cigarettes and weed and alcohol. And it's a disaster.
I thought you were referring to an actual scenario. And I was like, what did I miss?
No.
Domingo Ramon come back?
No, but when you have an overly cool dad, it's like, the basement parties are still happening at 25 years old.
No, everyone had that friend in high school with the parents that didn't give a shit. That's the basement you drank in.
100%. And a lot of them continued to drink 6-7 years after college in that same basement with the same dad.
And I guess that segues nicely into Boone's tirade on Monday, mocking Laz Diaz's strike call, which admittedly was funny when he did it, but it falls flat when the team continues to lose. And these tirades seem to happen once every 4 or 5 weeks, where Boone has this outburst. Nothing changes. It's the same thing he's complaining about. It's balls and strike. Yes, Laz Diaz was terrible on Monday, specifically terrible for the Yankees.
I was embarrassed for Aaron Boone, to be honest. I thought he got played hard by Laz Diaz in that little thing. He went out there and did a thing. Laz Diaz was like, you know what? Not today, Junior, and went back and like gave it back to him and basically shut him the F up, because he at one point, like, yes, Laz Diaz is not good. We all know that. He gives strikes off the plate. He's been doing that forever. But Aaron Boone coming out there after Laz Diaz started pushing back and like yelling back at him, he was like, "Go, be gone, gone," and he had nothing to say. He looked like a bitch.
Boone is lost. Like I don't know if he's lost the players or not, because still reports are that he's got a grasp on the clubhouse, but it's not materializing into anything. I don't know how. I don't know. I guess you like the fun dad, right? Like, you're buddies with the fun dad. And if there's a lack of accountability from leadership, you're just having fun. Yeah, obviously, I'm sure the players want to win and they're not happy they're losing. But like,
they do, man. Like, looking at Severino's face, I felt terrible. I really do. Because I genuinely.
But Severino struggling is not Boone's fault. Like, I'm not blaming Severino.
I understand that, but looking at his face afterwards, like, the guy, he's perplexed as to why it's happening. And
sure, that's
I feel
isolated
like
problem.
That's someone who doesn't have the support needed. Like, you fix him, help him.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like these outbursts, going back to the Savages in the box rant, like that was like the first time we saw those Boone outbursts, and it seemed like the team did rally around that. And then with each outburst, they got less and less effective, and the team got worse and worse. And it's the same thing he's complaining about every single time. Balls and strikes. Yes, newsflash. Umpires are inconsistent and a lot of times bad. And on Monday night, Laz Diaz's calls was 66% accurate on strike calls and a positive 1.59 runs for Chicago. So the Yankees got screwed in that sense on Monday night.
He was also very consistent with the call that he was making that was outside the zone. Very consistent with that outside strike.
But the point is still, the Yankees lost by 4 runs and left 1 million guys on base. Okay? So I don't know. Maybe don't go yell at the umpire, and that's not the reason you're losing. Look in the mirror for once. Just let the bad strike calls happen, and then maybe Boone, how about go into the clubhouse after the game and talk about how, yeah, Laz Diaz sucked, but that's not the reason we lost here, boys. It's because we left 1 million guys on base and wasted opportunity after opportunity and continue to do that. I mean, when you couple in the end of the Houston game on Sunday, where they couldn't find the strike zone, and the Yankees left 14 men on base as a team in the last like 3 or 4 innings on Sunday, segue into Monday, where they leave another dozen guys on base. That's the problem here. It's not Laz Diaz.
There was an opportunity actually for Boone to look at that and say something to them similar to what you said. Laz Diaz has been calling that outside strike and the consistent larger zone to one place for a very long time. These are adjustments that players all throughout baseball, throughout every decade, throughout every era have been making. When the umpire is behind the plate, yes, there's a recommended strike zone that should be, but that's not the case on a daily basis. You know where the umpire is going to be. He's consistently calling that outside strike every single time. This is an opportunity to say, guess what? I'm not going to yell at the umpire. I'm going to yell at my players. Guys, I don't give a shit what Laz Diaz. We know exactly what he was going to do. We knew what he was going to do. He's calling that strike. He called it all game long. So whether it's good or bad, you know what's going to happen. You can't use it as an excuse because you know it's going to happen. And adjust. Make the adjustment. And that is where this team cannot. It's like the Joey Gallo effect. Swing, and if the ball hits it, it's a miracle and great.
And the message that Boone going out and having that tirade sends is, Hey guys,
not your fault.
Not
his
your fault. Exactly. The problem here is not you. It's not us. It's him. That's the problem here. He's taking his aggression out on the umpire when his aggression should be taken out on the team.
Yes. And that's the problem with then he puts in the mix and the possibility that he's no longer the cool dad and he don't know how to be anything but.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue.
So there was a report by
God damn, we need someone. We need a drill sergeant. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I keep screaming this, like, bring the man back. Willie Randolph would be perfect for this team. Perfect.
I don't see
with a new next year.
I don't know who's going to be perfect
you
for
can't
this
go
team. I
into
just
a
know
new,
Boone's not the right guy. That's what I know.
You can't go. It needs to be completely different. Completely different. You can't.
Yes, but
we've
at the
said this
same
for
time,
2 years now. You can't go into another year with the same person setting the tone in the clubhouse and in the dugout with the way that the approach is. You cannot. You cannot.
I agree.
Cashman doesn't do that. Cashman, we could kill Cashman for all we want with the players and stuff. But at the end of the day, if they can't change a ton of players, they gotta. It's killing me. This stupid point on this hat.
I just realized what you were doing. You guys are watching on YouTube. Scott's been putting his hands on the top of his head, and I was like, "Oh, maybe he's just getting so emotional.
No,
he can't handle
every hat that you buy now has these stupid points.
Push the point on his hat.
God forbid I have a hat that fits well that they make in today's world.
Yeah, I've got a couple hats that are like that too.
But you have to change. You have to change. You have to change the tone.
Okay, so I agree 1,000%. Aaron Boone is not the right guy. This goes into a conversation the three of us were having before the episode started, where Logan said one of the most outlandish things I've ever heard him say. He said,
"Well, it started with Cone saying it."
He said, "I actually think Aaron Boone deserves some credit this year," or something to that effect.
Now, there was I don't remember where it was. I saw it somewhere on Twitter that Cone made a reference in some interview that actually you could put this up with Aaron Boone's one of his better managerial performances.
Yeah, again, that's not saying a lot because every year has been a terrible managerial.
Coney, like, he's being fucking nice at that point. Like, he's not true.
Yes, network employee, but the fact that this team is a couple games over 500, basically a 0-run differential, and the fact that they're still over 500, I guess you could point to, oh, the manager's made some good decisions. No, this team is broken. Aaron Boone is a problem for this team. Changing the manager, changing the hitting coach, pitching coach, whatever, is only going to solve so much next year, though. Of course, I want that, and I don't want to have the same leadership in place going into next year because then definitely the same thing will happen. But massive overhaul to this roster needs to happen as well, because at the end of the day, these players are not the right players. I don't think this team would magically be 15 games over 500 with a better manager. Might they be a couple games better than they are? Sure. But do you think the quality of this team is good enough to have them in a strong playoff position right now? Because I do not.
I think that it's hard to say because again, man, the talent is there.
You're going to say injuries because then that's the excuse that Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner are going to use to run it back with Aaron Boone.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you have the same core talent guys and you have a different philosophy, a different regimen coming in from the beginning, from February, from when these guys are starting to show up, then yeah, I think it could be different. I do. I think it could be. I think it could be different. How different? I think that the right person can absolutely, and we saw this we saw it in 17. We saw it in 17. The effect on that the structure around has on players. Take the names out of it. Yes, the system of the way things are can absolutely affect and get the talent because there are talented players that shouldn't be as bad as they are on this current team.
Okay.
I truly believe
to play
that.
devil's
I do
advocate.
think they could be much better. I think they could be much better because I think at the end of the day, the reason they are where they are is like solely on the happenstance that talent shows up in certain days and they become 500. Like that's it. Boone's not helping them, dude. Okay, they were down 2 runs yesterday.
I'm not arguing.
I know, but they're down 3 runs. Perfect example. They're down 3 runs yesterday. 5-2 ball game. Bases are loaded and Higgy's up. Okay, LeMahieu got scratched. We're all wondering, is he still available? Because recently people have been scratched and still playing, so not sure if he's available for pinch hitting. Was unclear. LeMahieu doesn't pinch hit. The next to start the inning, Volpe pinch hits for Jake Bauers, who's playing first base. Okay, Jake Bauers is playing first base. Rizzo, we know, is out. LeMahieu is out. Those are the three people that have played third base this year. I think Cabrera played one game at some point and played in one game at first base. So now they have they're trying to get back in the game, but they literally have no first baseman. They have nobody who played first base on the roster to play first base this year. We were going back and forth. Who's going to play first base? Who's going to play first? Cabrera a couple times, maybe. I threw out Billy McKinney. Turned out it was Billy McKinney. He played the first. Billy McKinney has no experience over there. He's played a couple times, but like, it's just exactly what you're doing. You're pitch hitting for the one guy, and I understand lefty righty matchup, but Bauers has been one of the better hitters on your roster. For
what do you do?
However,
What do you do in that month. Situation? That's not
Volpe. You're handicapping yourself by removing literally every single person on your roster who played first base this year. Billy McKinney hadn't even played this year. He played once last year, one in Oakland, and you're looking at. You're putting your team in a position now to completely play out of you. Even if you tie the game, promise you that something bad would have happened around first base. I promise you, whether it's in the 9th or 10th inning, I promise you something would have happened. There would have been a hard ground ball to first base that would have been booted and would have scored a run. That is exactly what would have happened because Boone put them in a situation now to not succeed. He's a bad manager. And none of this helps. He does not help any of these guys harness their talent because there is talent there. Gleyber Torres, despite your bias and all that, is playing despite what Aaron Boone is doing. It's insane. And the more we talk about it, the more I get frustrated with him. And I just need to see a different person there. I'm serious. I really don't care. Call up Shelly Duncan from AAA, get rid of Boone, and change it up. I don't care who it is. Make Aaron Judge the active manager, player, coach. I don't give a shit. Put anybody from the fan base in there to manage this team.
I mean, it
won't be worse.
That's the thing. Like literally, you could just take Boone out of the situation and not replace him with anyone. And I think they are exactly where they are because it's basically just the players running the ship and things are happening. Like players are being put in a lineup without logic. Like we talked about a couple episodes ago. Oh, you're trying to get Anthony Rizzo going, but you continually bat him in back of Aaron Judge instead of in front of Aaron Judge. Like none of it made sense. So they're
winning in spite of the incompetency. There's no possible way you could look
not
at
even
Aaron
winning a
Boone
lot.
has
They're winning at like whatever that. What's their record, Logan, since July 1st? It's got to be below 500, right? I would think. I feel like they split 4-game series and they lose 3-game series. So whatever it is, it's around 500.
They've won one series dating back to the beginning of July.
I want to talk about that Clappish article, but first I have to tell you guys about Game Time. If you're still looking for tickets later in this season, or maybe you want to go to a concert, some comedy shows, theater, or whatever, football season's coming around, Game Time is the best app to use. It is our preferred app because it is the easiest way to buy tickets. The app has so many cool features and is very easy to use. It shows you trending tickets, what deals the best, what sections the best deals are in, and it calls out cheap options and flash sales so you can take advantage of those sorts of opportunities. There's also event cancellation protection so you can buy with confidence. I love using the app because you get images of your seats before you buy, which is super important if you're going to a stadium you have not been to before. The buying process is also fast. It's just 2 taps and you're done. And the tickets go directly to your phone, so you don't have to go through your email to find them. You can snag tickets today without stress using Game Time by downloading the Game Time app. Create an account and use our code Bronx for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, download the app, create an account, and code Bronx will get you $20 off your first purchase. Thanks to Game Time for being with us once again. The Yankees are 25-32 since June 1st. 25-32.
It's bad, man. It's like, yeah, point. Okay. How do you bring someone back?
And so Clappish,
they're not going to get over 500 from that date for the rest of the year. They're not, right? No,
they're going to finish the season right around 500, game up, game down, something like that.
But look at June 1st on.
Oh yeah, they'll be below 500.
They'll be below 500 from June 1st on. How do you not fire the manager? If you
extend it further back to July 1st, 2022, after their historic run in the first half last year, July 1st through probably September 30th of this year, they will be below 500,
which is the first time
which is a season and a half.
How many years have the Yankees been above 500?
1992 was the last time they were below.
Yeah. And there's a real possibility that could happen. It could.
They basically had one good month this year. They played 9 games over 500 in May, and that's why they're not They played 500 in April, and as I said, they were
No matter
7
how
games
you
under
slice it,
since then.
I mean, basically, no matter how you slice it, since 2020, this team has been basically 500.
Kloppish article.
Yeah, so it was just a quick hitter thing on CBS Sports. He said Brian Cashman is very likely to return in 2024, but Aaron Boone's future is less certain. Now, the thing about Bob Klapisch is he's basically a mouthpiece for Brian Cashman and maybe even Randy Levine. If you remember that book that Klapisch wrote, I think it was after 2018 or something, that was essentially a Brian Cashman autobiography. It was just a 220-page suckfest of Brian Cashman talking about how he made so many changes and this organization is set up for success, lauding Brian Cashman for 200 pages.
Kloppisch has been around forever. He was there. He was in the beginning with the Bergen Record sports with what's his face, the NBA insider, Woj. The Bergen Record colored sports page was like the beginning of a lot of very good sports writers. But yes, he's been in bed with the Steinbrenners since.
What do you think him reporting that Boone's future is less certain means? Do you think that's just par for the course of, well, we're going to evaluate everyone at the end of the season, but ultimately the Yankees are not going to make a change? Boone's last year of his contract is next year anyway, so they would be firing him a year early if they do that. And they don't like to fire managers. They like to not rehire managers. Joe Girardi didn't get fired. He didn't get rehired.
Yeah. Such a dumb
Same with Joe Torre. Joe Torre didn't get fired. His contract was up. He didn't get rehired.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the first time we've heard essentially from the front office that they are considering a new manager, which means to me that they are absolutely considering a new manager, which if they don't make the playoffs, he's going to get fired. That's what I think. From the way reading between the lines,
that's the thing though. They have to
looking
not
at history.
Playoffs.
Yeah, I think there has to be something. They're
looking
not
at history. What do you mean looking at history?
With Klapisch, Klapisch, reading between the lines here, as you mentioned, he's been in bed with the Steinbrenners for a long time. He's been an insider. He's got the trust on that side. Like they go to him with things. He will talk, and when he talks about certain things like that, there's usually some validity behind it, or someone did it intentionally. So yeah, I think that this was intentional. I think this is
definitely intentional.
Yeah.
Yes, Logan.
So he also went on Michael K's show yesterday to talk about the article, and what he literally said was, "I think that Boone will be gone if the Yankees finish last or next to last." And he said
if they're next to last, that means they're out of the playoffs anyway.
Right. But he did say like missing the playoffs by a game or two and not like that might not be enough. Like he said, finishing in last is probably unavoidable for him to get fired. But other than that, nothing's a gain.
Right. So if this team is hanging around a playoff spot in the last couple of weeks of September and they just miss out, the built-in excuses are there for why this team underperformed this year. And they'll do the same thing. They'll point to the same thing the end of this year that they pointed to at the end of last year. The reason basically the same lineup was brought back this year is because they thought their true performance level was first half last year and not second half last year, or even a hybrid of both. As it turns out, it wasn't even a hybrid of both. It was second half last year is what this team truly is.
Yeah.
And they believed it was first half last year, which was on a historic win pace, like 120 something game win pace.
Which I will say last year makes no sense. The first half of last year makes no sense.
Yeah.
Understanding what this team has been.
We're gonna wrap it up soon. Quickly, just mention a couple things. Carlos Rodon placed on the IL. We didn't know if that was going to happen. Low grade.
He also pushed back. Didn't want to go on the IL.
Yeah.
He lobbied to not go on the IL. This is
well
exactly what we talked about. Similar to what the way he says, the way that he was talking about it. He didn't feel that he needed the IL so that he could do. And the fact that they were
but he's not helping. He's not helping the rotation right now. So just put him on the IL. It doesn't make a difference.
But they're not doing anything to help in his absence either. Like Severino's there. They need him to do well.
Yeah. Well,
They need him to pitch
but
because
you're
he got to
dealing-
pitch well. They don't
but
need him to pitch badly.
You're
Obviously,
dealing with
but
an injury guy, and so you have to treat an injury guy carefully. You don't let an injury guy push through things because guess what? He'll just get more injured. Also,
who cares? The season's over. He's going into next year. Who gives a shit?
Devi Garcia was DFA'd. So, quickly to summarize Devi Garcia, top Yankees prospect, top 50 prospect in all of Major League Baseball, playoff start in the COVID season, then just completely lost it. Another player that has regressed under the Yankees tutelage. He was DFA'd this year, had 32 walks in 46 innings at AAA and a 5.67 ERA. Just absolutely awful. There's many reports that the Yankees are planning to call up Everson Pereira to play the outfield at some point soon. What are you waiting for? Just call him up. He's having a great season in AAA, 926 OPS, 141 WRC plus in 70 games at AAA.
Keep an eye on Jason Dominguez's second half. Also, he's been
Call
been
him up
hitting.
too.
I'm just saying he in Somerset. As of late, he's been hitting. Plate discipline's been a lot better. Like
Needs something to get positive.
You can see
for the end of
progress.
this year.
You can see progress in that kid, which is exciting.
Like seriously, we need to have some positives, whether it be young players or manager fired or player changes at the end of this year, going into next year, for me to get excited about Yankees baseball in 2024.
All of the above, yeah.
Because if it is more of this, I got other shit to do with my life.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you soon.